Hello, everyone, and welcome to Osquery Office Hours. It is October, nice fall day here in New England. Perhaps not in Barcelona, where I know at least one of you is. And yeah, welcome to Office Hours. Start off with announcements or highlights. One maybe announcement is that I cut 560 yesterday, so 560 now exists. And I'm not sure there's much to say. Please test it. There are binaries up in GitHub, same as ever.
We will likely push it to our testing channel this week. Maybe not today because we're pushing some other related stuff to the testing channel, and we would want to know what broke if things do break. So maybe tomorrow or the next day, but we should be testing it soon.
Cool. Yeah, we have. I try not to push two beta things at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's maybe all I've got for announcements and highlights. Anyone else?
I presented at Objective by the Sea.
That's right. Congratulations. I saw at least one tweet that said they loved it. So everyone wins.
Cool. Awesome.
How did it
go? I think it was pretty well. About 70% people there use Osquery, which is super cool, at least the audience. And yeah, a lot of interesting macOS talks.
Do you have a sense of how many of them use Osquery via, any of the vendors we know, or just kind of doing their own thing, or just like
there were a couple of vendors there, and a couple of other folks who just use it internally. Vendors included, I think you all know who they are, big companies.
Some of them. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's neat to hear about.
Charville, did you learn anything? Hear of any announcements or rumors or anything coming up that will affect Osquery on macOS, or anything that we should be doing?
There were a few folks, bunch of them from Apple, but they were very coy, which is okay. I didn't hear particularly anything that would affect things, but I don't know. It's still not released, Ventura, so let's see.
If my experience with the M1 thing is that a bunch of things changed between beta and GA in a very surprising fashion, so I'm a little bit worried about that in any beta to GA thing. So as much as I'm running Osquery on Ventura now, I sort of fear something being different. I don't know if y'all have seen that yet or not, but we saw that with the M1 GA.
We definitely saw lots of stuff broken on M1, but I'm not sure that we were paying attention to what changed between the beta and the GA there. And I can say for macOS 13, we've tested, I believe, about 70% of the tables in Osquery, something like that, and didn't find anything that was clearly broken. That's on the betas, though. So I guess if as you say it changes significantly between the beta and the GA, then we'll just find out once it ships, I guess.
Yeah, we just saw a big Rosetta change. We went from like being stable to suddenly seeing having reproducible crashes. Do you remember the crashes in on the M1 Rosettas? Those all appeared post GA. So I don't think Ventura changes nearly as much, but I still I still fear it. Other announcements or highlights? If not, next section here is kind of an open-ended section for questions, issues, PRs that people, community members want to discuss. Anything people want to bring up that maybe doesn't feel like an agenda item.
I was just going to say hi. I'm from Figma, interested in learning more about Osquery and making some PRs when we run into random things as we kind of focus in on using it more.
Welcome.
I had one random question too, but I figured
Yeah,
office
fire
hours was
away.
just time to drop by as well.
Yeah, welcome.
So thanks. Nice to see all of you on the call here. One issue I was thinking of making a PR for, but was curious if people had other thoughts already on, was around looking at using like schedule epoch in the counter and it being a little tricky to convince ourselves that we wouldn't miss events by doing so, since when the counter is 0 is not always like if you ignore all of the times it's 0, you would potentially miss some things, I think, just from like the events tables, the rule changes. It was not entirely clear. Obviously, I can like write this up more, my thoughts, but I didn't know if that was something people were already like, do people use schedule epoch regularly while also still having like streaming style alerts at the same time?
It sounds like maybe what you're describing is wanting to have an approach where you sort of ignore the counter 0 logs, and then you're only getting the diffs. Is that what you're talking about?
But still having those regular snapshots for like post hoc investigations or things. So being able to have both styles of alerts with the same rule.
Well, with the same rule, a lot of the ways people do that is to end up with 2 rules, one set to only return diffs and then one set to return snapshots. You're looking to try and combine those?
Yeah, essentially, since it seemed hard to actually convince yourself you're getting the same view of the data. And it seemed close, like that was some of the intention of having schedule epoch, but then when actually looking into it, you would potentially miss some of the diffs if you change your rule to be that way, because some of the diffs will get pushed into the counter being 0.
So I think the intent of the scheduled epoch was to be able to handle sort of the cases of so if you have a diff stream, sometimes you need to like forcibly resync the world.
Yeah.
Right. So the scheduled epoch is a way to forcibly resync the world and reset that. It feels very akin to like, L1, L2, L3 backups or something else.
Yeah.
So it's a little different, but I guess it's also a little bit the same in a way.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't give you what you wanted, right? Because the counter 0 snapshot doesn't tell you what changed from the prior. So if you're looking for all the additions, you would need to find a way.
The idea I had was basically to stick, if we're going to say, oh, we're counter 0 now, and there were still other diffs we hadn't reported in the previous diff stream, to stick those in the previous epoch.
Brad, if you're ignoring the counter 0 ones, why actually are you changing the epoch at all?
Yeah, I think that was, right now we're not. That's something I was looking at, is the challenge was that for certain things we wanted sometimes to have a snapshot view, but other times to have a streaming alert. Like there's a new thing, let's alert on that right away. But also we might want to query like just what was everything on this host, 3 days ago. So kind of looking at what's the best way to combine that. Backup was definitely just having 2 separate rules, but then I discovered this schedule epoch thing. I was like, oh, that would be very nice if it just worked for that use case as well.
In some ways, my feeling is that the diff or snapshot should really be 2 Booleans and not one thing, but that's not how it got built. So
yeah.
Your suggestion feels pretty elegant. The when the counter changes, consider just shoving any pending diffs into the prior epoch. You could toss up a blueprint and see if anyone disagrees. But that feels like an elegant approach.
Yeah,
shouldn't break anything.
A little more clearer, so it's not on the fly. But I figured I'd toss that out and use it as a excuse to learn a bit more about how development happens on Osquery. So yeah, happy to make a blueprint and see what people say, and then try to make a PR if it seems reasonable.
Yeah, I'm definitely open to the idea based on what's been described here. So let's chat about it more.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks.
Any other things people want to raise before we go into our mostly identical agenda items? Okay, if not, agenda items. So a customer of ours raised Osquery issue 7780 to me last week, which it kind of describes two behaviors, and I kind of want to toss them out. Charvel, you're probably the most knowledgeable here. One of them is that the Osquery keychain, the APIs Osquery is using to talk to the macOS keychain are deprecated, which I feel like shouldn't matter, but is kind of a side issue. And then the other part of that is that so a customer of ours and whoever filed 7780 and maybe other people are seeing keychain corruption due to frequent Osquery hits on the keychain tables, which kind of feels like a big deal to me. But I don't have much more information other than what's in 7780 yet.
So the certificates table mentioned in 7780 doesn't actually use keychain APIs to actually parse the data. It just uses one keychain API to enumerate the path of the keychains, and then uses OpenSSL APIs to parse the ASN1 or X509 data.
That's interesting.
We changed this, I don't remember, a long time back, from the keychain APIs to OpenSSL APIs because there was a leak in keychain APIs, and running like select star from certificates like used like 10 seconds, and now it uses like less than a second. But I'm interested to hear, like, what does a corrupted keychain look like? Does it not open in keychain access? Does macOS complain?
So yeah, are we talking about Osquery changing state and changing the keychain, that kind of corruption? So it is writing something.
Well, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
All I know is corruption, and I might have a log snippet that I can share. I haven't yet reproduced this. With what you just said too, that opens an interesting question. So like one, it's not clear to me that this is an Osquery bug versus an Apple bug, but like doesn't matter. We probably care. But it makes me wonder if there's actually like an OpenSSL bug, if like OpenSSL is like leaving some weird lock, right? So if you're hammering on that and there's some kind of concurrent access, like what happens? Like, does OpenSSL open the file and then when it closes it, it like resets state? So if there's like a partial write somewhere, I kind of don't trust OpenSSL. So,
yeah. So I think like what basically the certificates table does, it uses the security API, the keychain API, to like open the keychain, get the status of it, and then kind of pass the data to OpenSSL to do the parsing. But yeah, there are a couple of old security APIs that we use which are deprecated in newer versions. I don't know, like, if we upgrade to the newer APIs, do we break backwards compatibility? I don't know about that as well, since the newer symbols are not present in an older SDK.
Depends how, I mean, I don't know when they started deprecating and how old the newer APIs are. So I'll try and fill in more info in this ticket as I get more.
I would also be curious to know, like, does corruption mean that some items are present in Osquery, like keychain tables, but not present in keychain access UI? Because that's totally okay. Like, the programs who create like keychain entries have a toggle displaying UI or not. So is that like the corruption? They're like they do a count of everything, and the count is different.
No, I think corruption is sorry, I'm finding what I have quickly. I think corruption is like I can't tell if this matters yet. I don't know, I'll have to see. Corruption is not that. Corruption is like
Okay.
something is logging errors about this keychain is garbage.
Okay.
And whether that's Osquery or macOS, I don't know. The snippet I have is actually from, there's nothing
And
identifying in
I would
this.
also be curious to know if it's a system keychain or like a user keychain.
Yeah.
I don't know how to reproduce it, but I'll hammer it and see what happens.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is understand the queries that are in play, because if we know the queries, then we should be able to spin up a VM and just like stick it in a tight loop and be like, can we reproduce this? But my guess is that either like I guess us or OpenSSL is doing something wiggly with like file locks, and I don't know, there's something ugly in there.
This is a pretty cursory look, but I just see that like the sec item copy matching function that seems to be the newer recommended API. It says macOS 10.6 plus.
I think that's below our minimum supported version.
What is our minimum right now? It's Mojave.
Like 12 or 13.
Okay.
No, we moved it to 14 now.
Okay.
More than
Mojave.
6.
Yeah.
Login keychain for each user. Well, anyhow, we can follow up in this issue. Feel free to dump what you know in there. Yeah, I think whoever filed 7780 said they were in contact with some support vendor. So,
So, wait, and Seth, you said the person who filed 7780 is your customer, or
nope. We have another entity
okay,
with the same bug. Charvel, I'm going to paste these logs at you. I have permission to share them. I'll put them in the ticket later on.
okay, cool.
But
so I'm guessing if someone has a support contract, I mean, no one has to answer, but probably people on this call are
there's at least one other vendor out there. No, there's more than one other. But
I know there's a primary vendor that folks go to for direct support just on the agent. So, but
I mean, other than Trail of Bits.
No, Trail of Bits is the one I'm thinking of.
But I mean, like Uptix exists. Whatever's left of Polylogix potentially exists. Security Onion. What's Hughes? ZenWorks, not ZenWorks. Zercurity. Right, so it could be any of those. I don't know how formal vendor is.
Yeah.
Could also just be some dude somewhere. Anyhow, I'll update the ticket with those couple of logs that I can share now, and I don't know, we'll dig in. So corruption is always very scary to me, much more so than deprecation warnings. Okay, that's kind of all I got on this one. Just a little bit of a heads up there. And I think next agenda item is PID on macOS. I don't know who wrote this.
Yeah, this is me. So parent PID on macOS is a little weird in the sense that if you launch an application from the dock or double click an application from the Finder, it will show the parent PID of either launch D or running board D, which is technically correct. But I think kind of knowing the context that it was like launched from the dock or launched from the Finder would also be helpful. And especially in case of like, trying to like detect something, like whether it was a user who launched it or whether it was some other program launching it. And I think there's a way to kind of get that responsible parent as well in most cases. I think it might involve like a deprecated API usage or something, but from my testing, it seems to work across the past 4 macOS versions, and I think it could be a valuable insight. So this would affect like the processes table and the evented processes table on macOS. And I still need to do some research, but I think I might be adding like a responsible parent PID column.
You're proposing adding a new column?
Yeah.
Okay. My gut sense would be not to change the existing PPID, because PPID has fairly defined meaning, so I would be very leery of changing it.
Yeah, and technically it is correct. It is launch D or running board D. It's
Yeah.
just sending an XPC message to dock or Finder, but
And then I think, like any other modifications to the processes table, I feel like the same thing I always ask is, what's the performance implication of this, and should it be gated behind a hidden column, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm sure you'll have an answer.
And I guess it would be a platform.
Yeah, platform
exactly the
dependent
term.
schema. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is helpful from like a malware detection point of view, like classifying like whether a user launched it or like a script launching something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I just, any touches to the process table feels like.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's our agenda. Anyone have anything fun they want to share? Or not?
Well, not sure it's fun. I haven't put it in the agenda, but I've recently opened an issue. Actually, sorry, pull request with the first attempt at this implementation for the CVE scan done regularly through the CI. So, yeah, currently that PR is, I would say, it's almost complete. It just misses right now the we should be using an API key to download CVs from the NVD database. We still miss that, and so there are a couple of lines to change so that we can insert the secret if we are able to get that API. I requested it from the website. It was basically instant. I just gave them the email address, and then they sent the API key pretty immediately. But otherwise, yeah, this work contains, there are a couple of Python scripts. One of them is the one that is regularly run by the CI, specifically by the master branch. This will not be run by the PRs, as is, and the job will run every 6 hours, I believe. It will download CVs for all the third-party libraries we have. The third-party libraries are provided through the third-party libraries information, like the name, the product, the vendor, and the version, are provided through a JSON file, which is basically, it's a manifest. It's something we have to keep up to date manually. And then there is a second script which validates regularly the manifest itself. So it validates the JSON format in which it is written, and it also validates that it is up to date with which libraries we have in the repository. And this script will be actually run at every PR, so that if a PR changes and updates or adds a new library and it is not added to the JSON file, it will give an error. And yeah, all this work is connected to the previous issue, blueprint issue I've opened. It's mentioned in the PR, but I'll give a link. There is also a related repository where there is an example of this logic running. Specifically, though, the downloading, the CV downloading and scanning logic. And I forgot one important thing about the first script, which is that after the CVs are downloaded, the script will also open issues for the CVs which are not yet being opened. So these will, again, regularly scan, and then if there are new CVEs not open in the Osquery issues tab, let's say, it will open new issues for those.
Nice.
Yeah.
So once we have this, do we expect to start kind of discussing the CVEs and potential impact on the issues? Or are we just going to plan to try to do patching for all of them? I think one of the things that we've talked about in the past is like people come up with these reports from things like Black Duck, and we're like, oh, we don't use that part of the code. So I guess I'm just wondering if there's some process or some idea for process as to how to handle the issues when they do get opened.
Yeah. So, well, do you mean the issues opened by customers or opened by the script, by DCI?
Opened by the script.
Or users, sorry, customer. Yeah, so the idea is that, yeah, we have to look into those.
I think that this is one of these difficult to solve problems automatically. You know, when you have a bug that is not exercised by our code base, you have to do reachability analysis in order to determine that. That's like one of those hard CS problems. Right now, the tools we have don't do that for us. So there will be at least a manual process, but sometimes just based on our intimacy with the code base, we'll know, like, when there's a bug in a weird SSL cipher, we can be reasonably, or at least very assured that, like, we don't do that. We only do this little thing with SSL, so we know that that bug won't impact us, and we can file it to the side for, you know, less urgent updating. But yeah, to do it all automatically would be the dream.
My suspicion is that what we'll see is this tool opens tickets based on CVEs, or issues based on CVEs, and honestly, we'll probably ignore them a little bit. And some of them will be like, that doesn't apply, we're just going to close them. And some of them will be like, well, this doesn't apply, but people are going to whine at us, so let's just update this library. And some of them will have to think about and fix. And I imagine it'll be like any other issue that comes in, you know, where we just kind of try and do them.
It means that we are at least not caught unaware when customers tell us about a CVE. We are like, oh yeah, we know that. We're tracking it. Here it is. Here's the justification.
Yeah, exactly. As I was mentioning in the issue, it's to be proactive with checking for CVEs that Osquery or at least its libraries have. Then what we do is the same of what we are already doing right now and what Mike explained. And to add to that, so the JSON manifest itself has a field where you can list CVEs to ignore. These CVEs basically, so they are CVEs that we know for the current version, they are not impacting the libraries, so that when we can do a PR that silence that warning or that issue. Because the detail here is that the script doesn't. So if you close an issue, the next time it runs, it will open it. If you're not,
Why?
Yeah.
I was curious about that. Why do you reopen them as opposed to just being like, oh, this issue already exists?
Because that's not necessarily. I mean, I wanted to separate I wanted to separate the two things. There might be whatever other reason we close, maybe an issue. I just wanted to separate the two concerns. Also, there is the other part which is similar, okay, but where the API sometimes download CVs, which are not affecting at all the library because they are CVs present in a product that uses the library, another product. And although the APIs should filter out those, sometimes they are brought in.
I guess my
So actually, sorry, I'm coming to I remembering the other reason. The other reason is that listing the whole list of issues on the GitHub repository, it's costly, it might not be possible. And in fact, when I'm checking to avoid to reopen issues, I'm actually putting a limit, which is like 6 months. I'm not looking at issues that are older than 6 months. So ideally, in those 6 months, we should at least decide if we want to either ignore the CVs or update. And normally, an update of Osquery will happen in those 6 months.
So I think I'm a little bit unsure about how this will work out in practice, because as you're describing it, it's creating a workflow where, for example, if a CVE exists and then an issue is opened, and then a PR is created to address that issue, we also have to loop back and update the manifest to say ignore the CVE or something, because
well, no. So if you are addressing the issue, so if addressing means updating the library, then the next scans will not include that CVE anymore anyway.
But only if addressing means updating the version, right? There's certainly a class of CVEs that will look like don't use this method call.
Yeah, in that case, exactly. In that case, then you will have to use the ignore CVEs field, because you have provided in the Osquery code a way to be able to ignore that issue.
So I guess in that case, someone would submit a PR where they update the list of CVs to ignore.
Yeah.
Hopefully include the reason why we're doing that in the PR description, or maybe even in the file that includes that listing. I'm not sure what the format would be of that file. And then reference the issue that was opened, so that then you can see that the issue is closed, not by actually updating the library, but by adding the justification. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Stefano, I mean, that sounds like not necessarily ideal to me, but given the constraints that you described, it seems reasonable enough. But my request would be, let's definitely make sure that it's documented exactly what process someone is expected to follow.
So the thing that concerns me a little bit is, if I think about building these, building this class of system, one of the things I think about is sort of what is the auditable chain of decisions, right? Like, where is the record of notification, and where's the decision tree that we went through, and where's the conversation about that? And the thing I like about this, right, is you have an automated system that creates a GitHub issue, which is exactly where we want to have like a logged record of conversation. So I'm a little bit, I'm not a fan of the bit where like it then would open a new one and not finding the old one. And I wonder if there's a way to link that. And if the concern is around searching issues, I wonder if we can search for issues created by this script. We can scope that down to make it more tractable. We could maybe look for labels or subjects. I don't know enough about which search API you're using. I know there's two.
Oh yeah, I'm using GitHub APIs.
Well, the GraphQL one
so-
has different performance characteristics than the REST one.
I see. Yeah, to be fair, yeah, there might be some details in there that, yeah, I haven't necessarily checked all the possible issues. All the possible ways to query the issues. I've mostly, again, looked at the GitHub APIs, and it seemed to me that, yeah, it was limited for the use we wanted to have, and we couldn't use basically the issues list as a database to decide what to do, if
Yep.
to open.
I mean, I think you can.
At least indefinitely, not indefinitely.
Well,
Looking
no,
at all the issues, yeah.
for a long time. So I don't know. I'm kind of willing to try this, but I feel like if there's more than a handful of them, it like anything where we have this extra step just feels like it's adding friction. So if we can eventually figure out how to just use the issues database directly, I think we'll probably do better with it.
Yeah, I can try. I see. Yeah, I can try again and see what's the performance of actually downloading, even just with the GitHub APIs, downloading again the whole list every time. Yeah,
you'd have to figure out a way to pass like some additional parameters up on search, right?
yeah.
Search for security labels or search for things created by this user, because I assume it's coming in off some dedicated user.
I have to double check, but I don't think that was present. That was something that you like. It is present in the response, but which means you will have to do the filtering after retrieving the issues.
Yeah, that sounds weird. There should be a search parameter for it, but I know there's multiple APIs. Yeah, feel free to grab me if you're not finding it. I've dug through these more than once.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try and get it reviewed. While I sound somewhat harsh about it right now, I'm actually pretty excited to see the automation and record keeping. I think it will look a lot better when someone says, "Hey, how do you know? What do you feel about CVE 123?" And we can be like, "Over there."
Yeah. No, I mean it's not harsh. It's something that I mean I came across too when yeah, looking at the APIs, or at least what I've seen in the moment. I thought that. Again, given that we were going to open a PR to fix the issue, you could do that additional thing. But I agree, obviously, remembering to do that additional thing, yeah, it's a step that we would like not to have, if possible. Yeah.
I'm going to add something to our standing agenda for looking at open security issues. I assume you're creating these tagged with security.
Right. Currently, they are actually tagged with CVE. So it's a new tag, and also the severity. But yeah, things like this can be changed if you prefer something else. So
okay. I will comment in the PR. And all this is easy to change. So yeah. Thank you. It's great. People want to talk about anything else? People like to review the list of open issues tagged with security.
Oh.
By the way, yes, there is sorry, yeah, no, there is the label filtering. And just
there are 4 of them, and the issues with the label security have build the thing Stefano just built, upgrade all dependencies, which is a little open-ended, evaluate thrift vulnerabilities. That one sounds kind of hard, and maybe log something when Osquery is stopped. So I'm not sure any of those really need review today, but feel free to speak up if someone wishes to advocate for anything that I just said.
Maybe just a comment, if I recall correctly, but the thrift vulnerability one was mostly to document something we actually fixed.
Yeah, that's been updated. We were looking to,
Yeah.
I don't know, tell if it were an issue historically, but perhaps the effort is not worth it. Depends on how many people are using the affected version of Osquery. I don't know even now. I don't remember which one that was. We've been pushing it forward
from a year and change ago. So if you haven't heard anyone talking to you about it, then it's probably fine. I think we could probably just close it.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about anything? If not, maybe we take 15 minutes and get out of here. Okay, hearing nothing. Thank you all for your time and code and efforts. You are all amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
That's probably it.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
But